Hello, welcome to another live Google Hangout on the Living Income Guaranteed. And today is our 100th edition of these Hangouts, of being here every Sunday, sharing with you guys what we have proposed as a solution for the problems in the world, specifically talking about economics, politics, but a lot more into alternative solutions and things that don't get so much attention in our mainstream media. So today we have decided that it was a good opportunity to create like a recap or a retrospective, because it's also been 2 years since we started with the living income proposal, and that we shared it with the world, that we started blogging about it, discussing about it, investigating it, creating the living income guaranteed proposal. And this has been a cool learning process for us, and what a better way to share it with you than with the two ladies that we've been working from a very long time already in relation to not only the living income guaranteed proposal, but a general process with the Equal Life Foundation, where we as human beings have learned our process of self-responsibility, learning how to look at the problems, create solutions, gather, discuss it. And so from there, the Living Income Guaranteed proposal was born, and these two ladies are the co-authors of it. So I'd like to welcome Maite and Leila Zamora Moreno from South Africa, living in South Africa, I'd say. Hello, ladies. Welcome to the Hangout.
Hey, hi, Marlen.
And so to our viewers, I'd like to remind you that we have questions and comments open for anyone that wants to come and ask about the Living Income Guaranteed proposal, specifically the movement, or if you have any other comment in general that maybe there hadn't been any other spot to do so. If you're watching also the repetition on YouTube, you can always place a comment there and we will get to it as well. We will be talking for about 40 minutes, so please make sure that you get your questions and comments through in that time frame. This Hangout is 1 hour earlier because there is a load shedding in South Africa, which means these ladies won't have power at the usual time of the Hangout, which is another reason why we require economic solutions for that country and all around the world to begin with. So without further introduction, I'd like to get into our actual discussion. So to begin with, I mean, what prompted us as individuals to propose a living income guaranteed proposal?
Well, initially, we actually started by wanting to support people on an individual level, on a psychological level. You know, how do you support a person? How do you assist them to develop their purpose? How do you empower people? What is internally within themselves standing in the way? So that's the approach we were taking. And the more we started working with people, we realized how money, as one word, was actually a very big factor in their individual well-being and the extent to which they were able to change and empower themselves. So we realized that the problems that people are facing is not only on a personal level. We can't only work on a personal level with them. There's problems, structural problems in terms of society, economics, politics, that are actually influencing individual people in to what extent they can be happy, can be fulfilled, can contribute, can live to the fullest potential, you know, that is inside them. But it's like there's only limited possibilities to bring it out. So once we realized that the problems are much larger than simply personal experiences, we started investigating the economic problems, social issues, and so we started moving from there, because we realized that if we really want to do this, if we care about people and their well-being, then we have to take that approach. There is no way around it. And yeah, so from doing the research, we started developing proposals and solutions. We started with writing blogs on topics, and then we saw that people are asking for more like a structured proposal, an overview of all the suggestions we've been making, and that's where the living income guarantee proposal came from. Yeah, and also because our approach was more psychological based, when we came to the conclusion that there is this giant elephant in the room called money, which is something, a lot of people don't like to talk about it. It's a very dark subject, a lot of people have resistance towards taking it on, have an idea that, I don't know anything about money, I shouldn't, be bothered going into that. It's just one big mess. Let me rather stay away from that. So when we just saw that, money is such a big issue, well, we had to move ourselves to actually go and study money. So that's when we decided to actually go and study economics at a university level to really gain understanding and insight into this problem, which is not something we were actually very happy about because of our personal relationship with money. But as we went through our studies, realizing that money is the problem and also the solution, it was actually really cool to open up the subject and learn about it and actually see in how many ways you empower yourself in coming up with solutions for the world just by familiarizing yourself with the subject.
That's very true. And I can include myself into that aspect of resisting all things that could be politics, money related. I didn't want to do anything about the system. I just wanted to be secluded in my little bubble of arts and in front of a canvas for the rest of my life, as I've said many times. And suddenly I realized that, well, I'm here suffering and being depressed about the state of the world and only painting about it, blabbering about it, but really not doing anything on it. So since I joined and became part of the Equal Life Foundation as well, one learns to look at the problems I was mentioning and start being part of the solution. How? By looking ourselves. Okay, what should we change within the system to, instead of being sad about people living in misery, in poverty, in these massive abuses that happen in the system, how can we empower ourselves? How can we implement certain principles that change the way that we interact with each other, that we live? And so one kind of steps out of that problem mindset and become part of the solution-based mindset, which is very much what has influenced the living income guaranteed proposal, I'd say. So first of all, before we move on, I'd like you to share a little bit more about your backgrounds, because you mentioned that, okay, you decided to study economics, but where do you come from and how do you took it from there?
Well, we're both originally from Belgium. We're sisters. Long before we got involved in the whole money thing, our interest was personal well-being and providing the same for other people. And then as we started investigating this more, we connected with certain people in South Africa who had the same goals and principles we were interested in. So then we decided, let's go visit these people. And first world country to third, like major bubble popper, which was really quite interesting to see, because coming from Belgium, you grow up in a first world country and you think like, I'm good, I have money, I can come by, everyone's rights are respected to a certain extent, and you kind of immediately create the assumption that this is the way it is. You don't really like think out of the box. And coming to South Africa, it's such a big shock to see how that's not the case for a lot of people in the world. So that was definitely a big wake-up call, and also again emphasizing how money is such a big factor in empowering people. That really needs to be in place.
Fully agree on that, and I can speak for myself that living in a third world country, there's this massive inequality as well. I mean, just yesterday, probably at least 3 people were asking me for money and even selling any kind of thing just to get by. And I keep asking, well, why can't we just get rid of poverty by providing a living income in such case and stop people from having this constant need and constant fear and constant anguish that this lack of money creates? I mean, why haven't we created this kind of solutions? And there is a lot of the psychological aspects that we've also been talking about of why we haven't done this before. But I would say that also basic income in general has been gaining momentum this year specifically, and we have also joined into this bandwagon of solutions and letting the world know that we can make changes if we all become part of it as one big boy, so to speak. So talking about basic income, a common question that has come up from people throughout the years now is, why did we decide to launch our own proposal or our own movement as the Living Income Guaranteed movement instead of just joining any other basic income group? So what would you guys say to this?
Well, I'd say that it also comes back to how we approached it. Our initial approach was never money. So we were doing our individual research and individually looking at how we can create solutions. We were aware of basic income, but the idea back then was still pretty basic. So as we were walking our own path of research, you know, certain aspects were highlighted which were not covered by the basic income, which we thought were actually quite important to point out as like important considerations to make an idea such as a basic income or living income viable. And I mean, it was not to be mean or anything, it's just that this is what we see is important, and to kind of because it is two distinctive ideas, to be kind of like a counterweight to the basic income, where we stand as
a point of constructive criticism.
Yeah.
You know, like an outside perspective. You know, because that's usually how it is in politics. You always have one side, you've got an opposition side. It's not that we are opposed. It's just a matter of being able to give another perspective, highlight problems, and provide other solutions. It's a matter of making sure we don't just
lose perspective. Yeah.
Lose perspective by having a tunnel vision.
Yeah,
I think so
proof
far
of that
worked out quite well, as we've seen in the hangouts as well. We've received feedback from people from basic income, and as we're seeing the basic income movement expand, we're seeing that some of our ideas are being picked up on and seeing how it can work and be integrated in their platform.
I would say that it is very healthy for any movement to have groups like ourselves coming up with these other ideas and perspectives that might not be part of like the, for example, basic income plan in itself, but that in the long run, there are points that need to be looked at, because when we look at the problem from the psychological perspective, then we understand that it's not only how you're going to give the money in itself or how you're going to take change this taxation system, but how you're going to ensure that that person stays motivated to work, for example, or how they're going to plan their lives for the future, how to change the way that they spend the money, which are topics that we've covered very much throughout these hangouts as well, and that I invite everyone to watch them and review them, because they very much explain why we do this and these hangouts as well. So in terms of what you guys have seen in South Africa, and you saw like the disparity that exists there and this contrast from coming from first world country, Belgium, to South Africa, you guys decided to write out a South Africa living income proposal tailored specifically for the country. So what is the aim behind it?
Well, one point that we've been looking at that we'd very much like to do and create, which Cerise also talked about in the previous hangout, is to create a sort of pilot project in South Africa, where we not only look at integrating the legal solutions and adjustments, but also more the wider Equal Life Foundation principles, which includes community principles, personal principles, to create a community where people are individually and together empowered. So as we were looking into creating that pilot project, we realized, okay, then we of course have to find out more about South Africa specifically, you know. So we started doing research about political, the social, the cultural realities in South Africa specifically. There has also been a big basic income movement here already in the past. And as we were doing more research on South Africa, we decided, well, why don't we take the living income guarantee proposal and start writing one specifically for South Africa? That will give us clarity in how it could work in South Africa, what adjustments we would make here specifically. Because as we've mentioned also in previous Hangouts, the living income guarantee proposal is not a static
One size fit all.
yeah, definitely not. It is a guideline, a proposal. It's got many different aspects. There's a lot more that can be added to it. A lot of have opened up in the last 2 years, mainly with Hangouts and inviting other people and what they're doing to just offer a range of solutions, and then where each country needs to kind of see what would work best for them, what is aligned to their culture, their values, their reality, where they're currently at. There's no way you can implement the same economic and political model, let's say, in a country like South Africa and a country like Belgium. They are two different countries. They're two completely different realities. So yeah, in preparation for the project, the pilot project here in South Africa, that's why we started looking more into South African reality and then fine-tuning the proposal for South Africa, which I think will assist us a lot once we start building the pilot project.
That sounds awesome. And also about this worldwide effect, and you were mentioning the differences from, country to country, of course. So what about other people that throughout these past 2 years have contacted us from other countries and have gotten interested in the principles or the proposal as a whole or certain aspects of it? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is actually for, I'd say, at least the past year now that we have a group of people from several countries, mostly part of basic income parties or basic income movements, that contacted us. We're like, okay, I kind of like what you guys are saying, and asked us for perspective and to brainstorm together. And so we've been collaborating with them and discussing how to approach problems for quite a while now, which has been a lot of fun and really cool to be able to work with people around who are really engaged and committed to bring change about. So from that, it was first individual people that came to us, and then we started working with them. And then the amount of people started growing. So now we have a group, a support group. We call it a political empowerment group, where every 2 weeks we meet, we come together, it's online, to discuss and share approaches where people from different countries can, share what they've been doing, how they've come across certain hurdles, how did they overcome it, generally look at the philosophy of certain policies, and it's a lot of fun because anything goes. So, and then from there it started growing even more, because apart from people who are currently active, there's also people who came to us saying, well, I would like to be active and I'd like to participate politically, but I don't know how. How do I do that? So then we said, well, join this group. You'll get firsthand experience from other people. You'll get so much perspective. Because that it's people from different countries and different kinds of parties. Some are basic income, others are not, where it's more a wider approach. And so, yeah, everyone gets to share ideas, and now there's more people that's just started coming into the group with the question of how do I become politically active, that have now taken on this point and are going out to become activists on a political level, which is great.
I find that awesome, and also part of our contributions in general, where we talk about also the Hangouts, for example, the role that they have in relation to us supporting grassroots movements and political parties, people from many other backgrounds, including people that, for example, are proposing a system. We've had people from the US like Copiosis proposing the resource-based economy and developing their own systems for it. We've had people sharing about permaculture and cooperatives and how they operate. People that have explained to us how resistance movements operate, and places like zapatismo. We've had people from basic income movements come and share how the movement is growing in their countries, what they see as a problem at a local level, and so kind of creating a public awareness throughout these hangouts as well, so that more people see that there are many people looking at solutions, yet many times there's no space to share that. And I would say that these hangouts have also become sort of like an open discussion table for anyone that is willing to come and share with us their solutions and their principles that many times are very aligned with what we propose as the Equal Foundation. And that's very cool to find that even if they're not entirely adopting a living income, for example, system or proposal, they are very much aligned to that similar principle-based mindset and looking at how we can be part of a solution and placing it into application, which has been also very empowering. I mean, throughout these Hangouts, we've also been able to share perspectives from people that go from activism and being in things like Occupy Wall Street to people that propose money-free parties. And that's very cool because many times when we are so imbued in the problems in this world and the news and all of this information constantly leading to problems and more problems, there are very few outlets to discuss solutions. And even documentaries many times leave out that aspect of going straight to the solution. So one of the main purposes of these Hangouts has been also to discuss the problem and at the same time, at the end, come back to the solutions and what can we do and how can we empower each other. So this has been also like a very cool experience at a personal level as well, being able to invite all of these people to these Hangouts and having them come in here and share, and having people participating in these Hangouts also asking questions, placing comments, sometimes even placing our guests to think a little bit more on things that they hadn't considered before. That has also happened, which I see is very important, and not only to make us the point of importance, but simply to also encourage many more people to do this because it's doable. It's through the internet. It's a way of alternative media, but not only to share the information. We like to discuss solutions, and I'd say that this is what characterizes ourselves very much. So what would you guys say on this aspect?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, these Hangouts have been, and we just want to both thank you for having taken this point all the way to the 100th episode. You're amazing.
We're going to have a party.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
it's quite a commitment. Yeah.
It is also like a cool way to say, well, there's many things to talk about. Sometimes we think, oh, well, what are we going to talk next? But there's always something that we get to read. And if we get to contact the person and they agree to come here, it's great to always have also to our viewers this constant flow of new perspectives and people just sharing also their personal experiences and what drove them to become part of this new solution-based mindset, so to speak, and proposing their own ways. That, as I repeat, even if we don't agree entirely with them, it's always cool to see how people are moving from the problem, from the just general depression about it, to implementing solutions. So that has been like the general review of the Hangout, and I would like to personally thank all the people that have been part of these Hangouts. And we've had people that are now becoming like basic, very important voices for basic income, like Scott Santens, who was first here in this Hangout discussing for the first time, and now he's on RT and very much being published by Huffington Post. And this is awesome that people are also growing with the movement and becoming big voices and are really hard working individuals also promoting basic income as well as many other solutions. So guys, I'd like to ask you about the plans for the future, because we've had a living income proposal for the moment. That is what we share usually. Many more topics can be added to it. But aside from it, what would you say is coming this movement?
Well, firstly, I think whatever has worked in the past and has been a success, you continue doing. So the hangouts we've been doing, connecting people, not only us connecting with people, but also being able to connect people to each other, to come together and provide new solutions, keep promoting and supporting others, putting it out there, educating about different problems that people might not know about, and the solutions that are already being developed about it. So definitely the Hangouts is something that we very much would like to continue doing. On the other hand, we have those political support group that is now quite recently become quite a big part of our movement. So we definitely would like to grow that and expand it. So hereby we would very much like to invite anyone who is either part of a political party, political movement, or who would like to be and doesn't know where to start, where to go, and would like more support in that, then please email us. We'll put the email in the description, and then we'll give you the details of how to join. I mean, it's online, there's no commitment or anything. It's just if you're interested, then come and join, please. We'd very much like to have you, and see what we can do together. You know, I mean, that's always been one of the big important points that we realize is we have to work together. So even if we have a particular proposal, we are pushing forward. And more people are starting to, and parties are starting to integrate into their own political agenda. It's still important to work together, connect with others, find solutions, fine-tune your own proposals and things like that. So fine-tuning the proposal is also something we're going to be doing in the future, based on the past 2 years and all the information and all the solutions and new perspectives that I've got from that. What else would you say?
Well, we also have to see how in real time the developments open up in terms of basic income and what other new points come up that we hadn't considered before. You know, there's a lot of new projects, initiatives starting, so it will be very interesting to see what comes out of that and how we can integrate that information into the proposal.
Yeah, something that I learned from these hangouts and how Anthony Paramelli discussed what the Zapatistas did in Chiapas and how their system operates. He defines it as a meta model, which means it is like a model that has been applied in many other places, like in Brooklyn and somewhere in Europe, if I'm correct. So obviously it's not going to be the same because it's not the same people and it's not the same territory. And it's like kind of like the same mechanisms and principles that can be applied everywhere else in the world. So that's kind of like a similar thing that we're wanting to do here. It's planting the seeds for certain aspects of awareness as to what needs to go hand in hand with providing a basic income. And this is something that we emphasize many times, that with giving money to people, there comes also a set of responsibilities and awareness, because it's not only giving the access to the money itself, but we've talked a lot about sustainability problems, corporate social responsibility, and how to ensure that actually the government and the corporations can work in a way that is beneficial for society. So there are many systemic problems that are usually left out of the discussion when only talking about basic income. So that's why I see also these hangouts as very empowering as well in becoming aware of what is going on in the world besides just the basic income proposal, and also what is our extent of responsibility to it. And it begins also with awareness, with creating discussions. And I'd like to say that we also have a new series of hangouts coming through. Can you guys tell us about it as well?
This is a new series which is called Politics of Self, which is 3 very committed and very fun people who launched this new series where they're each time going to take on a political topic and are going to start educating people on politics, because that's a very big thing we noticed now in specifically the last year, where the demand right now is for support in terms of politics. How do I enter politics? You know, we've been saying for a very long time, like, you know, if you want to affect change, please, you know, consider entering politics. And it's great to see people are taking us up on that. But at the same time, realizing that a lot of people don't feel like they have the skill or the vocabulary or the understanding of what politics entails. You know, like, how does it actually work? What do I do? So these hangouts will focus on that, educating people on the world of politics, so that you come to a point where politics is simply something that's part of our world, where you understand what the processes are, what the institutions are. It's not some big, scary thing out there. It's simply a matter of conventions most of the time. And it's a matter of understanding it, educating yourself about it, and then also becoming aware of all the tools or the ways in which people can participate, because there's obviously many different kinds. It's not just voting at an election every 4 years. There's many ways you can become politically involved. To also educate people about that aspect. So this will be a very interesting and fun process ahead. So if this is something that you're interested in, or where you think, that's not for me, well, you know, hold on, you know, give it a go, because it might be something worthwhile for you. You don't know what might open up.
This is also a very cool example of how we're just regular people deciding to inform ourselves, educate ourselves on these problems, and be able to discuss them, considering the principles that we've many times talked about: self-responsibility, how to become an honest individual in this world, how to start aligning it to these kind of principles, what can we practically understand about it, how could we use the mechanisms within it to change it. And so to not see, as you were mentioning, these things like politics and democracy and so forth as things that are out there or that do not really matter in our lives, or that are simply lost in terms of not being a useful way to create solutions. But we very much also emphasize that politics is a way to create real change in the world, changing how the legal systems operate. And so that begins with becoming comfortable with these topics. And these hangouts, Politics of Self, with Joanna, Joku, and Kelly Posey, will be coming through this channel as well. So make sure that you subscribe so that you stay tuned for them, because they will certainly walk us through the problem and getting it to a point of solution, and creating a new point of awareness of how the world of politics and economics operate at the same time. And so I'd like to finally ask if you have any other point to say, but we have a comment here from Rhonda Fairman. So she's saying, hello, I am in Canada. Do you do any in-person promotion or mostly online? Well, Rhonda, I don't know if you're talking to my guests here or myself, but we're mostly online. Would you like to say anything else, guys?
Yeah, so if you're looking to meet with people online, we can be in touch with people we're working with in Canada. Pop us an email and we can give you some contact details of people who are in Canada getting together. So it's something we can do for you.
Yes, we also have the Hangouts with Tim Ellis and John Sanderson from Basic Income Canada Network, which I suggest that you check out. The Hangouts are in this channel because they also explained a lot about how they operate there. And of course, people from our own group that are part of it. So thanks for your comment. And guys, I'd like to ask you any final points that you'd like to share for this Hangout.
Well, the other day I was actually reading a book on South African politics and the history of how South African politics has been developing and developed in the past. And it was quite interesting where it got to the topic of apartheid became obsolete. And it was very interesting to see how there were very similar lines and trends in terms of how the basic income movement is now gaining momentum, where it had used to be like a part of reality. It was kind of a problem, and you know it's not nice, but you tolerate it because that's just the way it is. And how we're seeing in the news now, more and more people are seeing there's a problem, to a point where we're not going to talk, and it becomes, a new way of living. And what was quite interesting to see in that is apartheid and was essentially certain people the right to a dignified life. It was, not cool, and people stood up for it, and change came about. And with the basic income problem, where people are not guaranteed a living income, exactly the same point where certain people of the population, doesn't matter they have, are being denied a dignified life, which is essentially economic segregation. And how just like apartheid used to be just normal and the way it is, we're now seeing a shift, how more and more people are realizing where this is not cool. So yeah, that was quite interesting to see.
So what we're basically working towards is
Ending
that
apartheid.
that moment in time, because when you look now back on apartheid, people go, how did we ever accept that? How could we ever, live like that? We want to get to a point where we look back and say, how could we ever live in a world where there was no guaranteed living income? Because that's how it should be.
Exactly, I fully agree on that, and that is the point that baffles me every time that I see misery and poverty and injustice and abuse. And every single place that you look at, you can see a problem to be fixed. So yeah, many times I've asked our guests, like, why haven't we done already this, meaning implementing a basic income, creating these solutions? And many times it comes down to fears that we might have about it, just general apathy or belief that we don't have a sufficient power to change things. But here we are also kind of being the example and sharing that it all begins with having that decision, that drive and motivation to be part of the solution, to inform yourself, to educate, to bring it as part of your discussions with friends and family. Because something like basic income can be a topic of discussion in your family table, and that is very much valuable, because then you plant a seed to a point that can be later on heard in the news, and so they will start linking the dots and seeing it as part of mainstream. This is what we are doing here as well. So we have one comment from Rhonda Firman. Again, she's saying, thanks, would appreciate that email. It is livingincome@equallife.org. I will place it in the notes of the Hangout as well. Thanks for that. Keymaker is asking, ever thought about the basic income as a separate and new currency that is added the existing currency? So the basic income is then easy to control via law to ensure it meets its goals. Or in other terms, basic income money is used for food, rent, etc., but not for toys. What would you guys say on that?
Well, it's kind of similar to the food stamps approach, isn't it? Yeah, it's a big topic. I'd like to get back to you on that. But we are at the end of our hangout. I mean, we could go on normally in usual circumstances, but we have load shedding tonight in our country, which means that the power will be off in 5 minutes. So rather write a blog on that for you.
Also, I'd like to remind you, we have a. Also, I'd like to let him know or her know that our possible guest next week will be a person that is proposing precisely this basic income as a separate currency in the internet world, so to speak. So rather stay tuned for that. Let's hope that he can make it. So girls, thanks a lot for this. I would also like to thank all of our guests and all the people that have watched with us, if not the 100 episodes, which I do recommend you do, that have come with us and shared their perspectives, their comments. It's always very cool to read the questions and get us thinking throughout the conversation. Thanks, and big thank you, and thanks to you guys as well. And we're looking forward to keep walking together on this. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.